Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Twins Daily Postgame Pint. My name is Nick Nelson of Twins Daily. Today is Friday, August 7th, 2020, and we'll be talking about the Twins game against the Royals that just concluded, the series opener. Twins lose 3-2. Before we dive in, my name is Nick. As I said, I am currently sipping just cracked open a Rush River double bubble from Rush River Brewing in Wisconsin, a very tasty Imperial IPA. I think that's needed after tonight's game. Before I introduce you to tonight's panelists, just a couple items. Everyone is welcome to participate in the post-game show. We would love to have any of you participate in any way you can. Just going to remove Joe Lopez here because he is just spamming. The Q&A panel, feel free to submit a question there. We'll talk about it on the air. And also, yeah, you're free to go into the chat and make comments there as well. Joining us tonight, a couple of Twins Daily's finest citizens in the writing community. We'll start out with Mr. Matthew Taylor. Matthew, how are you doing tonight, sir, on this fine Friday night? And are you having a drink over there?
Hello, yes, Matthew Taylor, doing well. Happy to be here. Wish we were talking about a more exciting Twins game, but I am drinking a Guinness Baltimore Blonde, which is a Guinness that's brewed in Baltimore, which I'm having for the first time and enjoying it.
Excellent, excellent. And then, of course, we've also got coming straight from the state of Wisconsin, the home of this fine beer that I'm drinking, Mr. Diehard Jeremy Nygaard. Jeremy, how are you doing tonight, my man? What are you up to?
I'm doing all right. I'm drinking my trusty Coors Light. That's what I do on a Friday night. That's all I got.
Hey, you can't go wrong with the silver bullet. All right. Well, let's talk about this game, the 3-2 loss. The Minnesota Twins, who entered tonight's game leading the American League in wins, went up against the Kansas City Royals, who were leading the American League in losses. And lost 3-2, as you can see here. A pretty flat offensive effort from the Twins. 2 runs, both coming on solo homers off the bats of Marwin Gonzalez and Byron Buxton. 5 hits only. As you can see, the 3-4-5 hitters went a combined 0 for 11. Max Kepler hitless in the leadoff spot. Another very, very disappointing offensive effort from the Twins. Which we've seen quite a few of. A decently pitched game. Devin Smeltzer was fine, I thought. The bullpen was solid. They kind of went with some of their lower rung relievers, but they got the job done against this very poor Kansas City lineup. As we fire up the exit velocity rankings here, actually Alex Gordon had the hardest hit ball of the day off Matt Whistler. It was a ground out. But then, of course, Maikel Franco had a big double, ringing double off of Smeltzer and Buxton's home run. Let's start with you, Jeremy. What's your top takeaway from this little letdown here to kick off the series in Kauffman?
I think for me, as disappointing as the game was, the news before the game, first of Arise being out with a sore knee and then Donaldson going on the IL, there's not a lot of infield depth, like if one of those guys that was playing tonight goes down, maybe Arise comes in, but what's the next choice? Is Rosario playing second a thing? Is Sano going back to third and Cruz playing first a thing? And it's not like as simple as calling up or bringing up somebody from the other site, because they're a bunch of quad A players or Royce Lewis. And so that to me is kind of more big picture than this game. Yeah, the offense wasn't great. The pitching wasn't fantastic. You're going to have games like this. It's a road game. I still think they take 2 out of 3 from the Royals. But the depth of the infield right now is questionable. I'm not worried about the pitching depth. But I'm a little concerned about the infield depth at this point.
Yeah, with of course Josh Donaldson going on the injured list before the game, which we'll dive into a little further. I do assume they'll bring up a little more depth. Travis Blankenhorn is probably not a bad guess, a guy who could play a couple different infield positions. But to your point, this is a team with championship aspirations. Travis Blankenhorn is untested to say the least. So they don't really have – they're running low on guys that they can just trustworthy guys to plug in to fill in those spots if these guys are going to miss time. Rocco said before the game that Luis Arias's knee soreness was very minor, was the quote I saw. But just to put some context on that, he was very insistent that Josh Donaldson's injury was minor when it happened a week ago, and now Donaldson's going to miss at least half of August. Matthew, what was your standout sort of takeaway from tonight's game?
Yeah, I think for me, it just, I don't know, just reading the body language and just the whole feel of the game, it just felt like, and even throughout the Pittsburgh series, you felt the same thing, that it just feels like the team's sleepwalking a little bit, just through every at-bat, through every inning. It just seems like there's not a ton of urgency out there. Every at-bat, it just, I don't know, you're not getting vibes of a team that, not that they don't care, but they're just not really showing a whole lot of urgency out there, which I think part of it reminds me almost of a team, like a playoff NBA team in May or June or something, when you're just kind of coasting and waiting for the playoffs. And I do think a lot of it has to do with the expanded playoffs, and I do think there's a lot of coasting going on. I think some of the managerial decisions, some of even the decisions of keeping the guys out who might be sore a little bit, have to do with just the nature of the season. And so I think there's a lot of that going on. So I've been trying to parse that out of how much should we be worrying versus how much of this is just Twins have a guaranteed playoff spot in a random weird 60-game season. So that's sort of my main takeaway.
Yeah, and I mean, to an extent, that's probably valid. I mean, as has been discussed ad nauseum, with the expanded playoff format, I saw today that the Twins officially have a 99.9% chance of making the playoffs according to the odds. So, to an extent, I don't think we want them to be pedal to the metal all year long. I think we would all prefer if Buxton was not throwing himself into the wall to make catches against Kansas City in early August. But there is, there is a certain level of intensity that you'd like to see on the field. And I agree. It hasn't really been there these last couple days. Tonight was a real, I don't know, with the rain and like the pseudo rain delay and like these kind of almost injuries that are happening with Sano getting the little collision and the Kansas City reliever slipping around on the mound. It was a weird, sloppy kind of game and probably the least entertaining game we've seen this year. But we can at least try to have a little fun here talking about it on a Friday night. To remind everyone, the chat panel, the Q&A panel, everyone is welcome to participate, share your thoughts, share your feelings about the game. We'll discuss them here. I see that Mike Link said that he's very frustrated that they waited so long with Donaldson. I guess before we really delve into this game, let's talk a little bit about that. I think that's the biggest news of the day. I actually wrote last night on Twins Daily about Josh Donaldson and his calves. It's something that I find quite concerning. I've been doing some research on his history, and to be honest, what's happening right now is there's some pretty clear parallels to what happened in 2018 when he missed almost the entire season. He had a calf tightness issue that caused him to miss a couple weeks. He was ramping back up in late June at that point, and during a pregame, just doing fielding drills, he had a setback that caused them to change the diagnosis to an acute strain, and then he was out until mid-September. And so what we've seen this time is there was a calf tightness issue last Friday, a week ago tonight. He was on the field earlier, dragging around some weights, trying to warm up, and after that, they placed him on the IL, and they're using the term strain. How concerning is this to you, Matthew? Are you feeling like this is a precautionary measure and he'll be back in a week when he's eligible, or does this concern you a little more than that?
Yeah, I think you have to be concerned. He's your superstar player who handed a huge 4-year contract to, and he's 34 years old. So obviously you're concerned that this is your first impressions of him. He struggled out of the gate and now this, and who knows when he's going to be playing, and when he comes back, who knows how effective he'll be. I think Twins are really blessed to have Marwin Gonzalez, who's filled in extremely well for him, but you have to be concerned just with not having Donaldson out there.
Yeah, Marwin had another big game tonight, big home run. I think he's looked really sharp defensively everywhere he's played. He's been a huge bright spot for this team so far. Jeremy, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings on the Donaldson situation? Are you worried?
I'm more worried now than I was a couple days ago. I thought, the Twins have been very cautious with how they've handled everybody. Since Rocco started, really since Felvey came on board. So him sitting out a couple games, the fact that they didn't IL him, immediately gave me, zero concern, just because that's kind of how they've handled things. The fact that it went as long as it did, they were, super certain that he was going to go on the road trip, and he did. But now he's going to miss the entire road trip. So to me, that means there was some sort of development over the last couple of days that suggests that it's not as minor as we first thought. Now, the 60 game thing, the 8 teams in the playoffs, it all makes trying to make sense of what this year is way more complicated. Donaldson could miss another month, and if they can get him ramped up for, potentially 2 games in October, that's good enough. And so that's really the variable here that I think makes all of this a little bit harder. It's like news hasn't been good on Rich Hill. News hasn't been good on Homer Bailey. News hasn't been good on Donaldson. News hasn't been good on Arise. Like, the fact that it's all like that, to me, suggests that it's over cautious, more so than all these injuries that just start to add up. In the event that all of these are more serious than we first thought, then it's really concerning. I don't think that that's where we're at. And maybe that's just being optimistic. But I'm not going to panic yet. But it's weird, to say the least.
Yeah, and right now it looks like they could use another big bat in this lineup, someone to step up. It's really not happening with some of the guys that they are counting on. Obviously, Sano, another 0 for 3 tonight, another strikeout. He's batting 135 on the season. He did hit a couple hard balls. He was the only hitter in the lineup with multiple hard hits, according to StatCast. Rosario going 0 for 4 tonight. Buxton's starting to get going, which is nice to see, but he's also still, let's move back here to the screen share. And you look up and down this lineup, and these batting averages are just, with the exception of Polanco and Marwin, they're brutal. So it's really been a team-wide slump so far, in a lot of ways. Obviously that understates it. Kepler has a good OPS. He's had power and patience and everything. So I don't want to exaggerate, but Garver is one that really stands out too. Just struggling, and he had a tough one tonight. He drove one of the hardest hits of the night. I think the expected average on that liner up the middle was like 670, but they had him shifted perfectly, and it went right to the shortstop. So the Royals coming into today had allowed the second most runs in the American League, outside of the Mariners, and the Twins have only scored more than 5 runs once since the White Sox series. So I know we talked about this a little, but as we look to this offense, what do they got to do to get going? They're just, 2 solo homers tonight, no kind of rally. Who are you looking to really rejuvenate this offense, especially now that we know we're going to be without Donaldson for a while? We'll start with you, Jeremy.
I think they got to get back to taking more pitches. That's one thing to me that stood out tonight. The bats were all very quick. Ultimately, if the pitcher's throwing strikes, the bats aren't going to last forever. But the one thing I thought they did extremely well in the first handful of games this year was running counts full, following balls off. Not necessarily hitting the balls hard, or stringing a lot of hits together throughout the course of a game, but seeing a lot of pitches. Arise does that extremely well. He's not in the lineup. Garver has done that extremely well for a year plus, and just saw a lot of strikes tonight that didn't allow him to have long at bats. Cruz does that extremely well, got a day off. So this lineup tonight wasn't exactly the best lineup that could have been put forward. And I think that's okay if guys are getting normal rests. Giving Cruz the night off when you don't have Arise, Donaldson, things like that, Rosario DHing. And I just think that little thing, taking some pitches, is going to make a big deal. I don't know. I mean, Kepler walked once. Was that the only base on balls that the Twins had tonight?
Sano had one as well, I think.
Yeah, one for Sano and one also for Garver.
So, and so I don't know if the pitch, if you have pitch counts there, but it feels like Kansas State didn't throw a ton of pitches, and the game was relatively quick. But I think for this offense to get going, it's going to be seeing a lot of pitches, and I think that's probably not uncommon across baseball. Guys getting thrown back into the game situations early. Cruz was really good early, but pitchers are going to be ahead of hitters, and so the Twins have strung some good innings together. But to get back to what they were last year, they're going to have to take more pitches. They're going to have to work more counts, and the guys that did that really well last year, like I mentioned, maybe weren't in the lineup tonight or just didn't have their night tonight. And so I think things are going to be just fine with this offense because there's too many good hitters for this to be a prolonged deal over the course of a 2-month season.
Yeah, I would agree. So you mentioned about Cruz getting the night off. I see Mike Link in the Q&A asked, why would you sit Cruz? A DH does not need a night off if you are going to keep him in there for a PH. I guess my personal thought is I'm almost a little surprised this is the first night he's gotten off. He is 40 years old now. And, as we've mentioned, it's not pedal to the metal win every game. He's been their best hitter. He is their best hitter pretty clearly. Matthew, what did you think? Were you bothered by the decision to give Cruz a night off? Or, especially considering, as Jeremy mentioned, having a couple other major players out of the lineup, I think maybe should that influence that decision?
No, I'm with you, Nick. I've been waiting to get Cruz a day off as well. I was thinking that it was going to come yesterday, or thought it should have come yesterday, but I was happy that they gave it to him today. And I think it makes sense as well with the Twins facing a lefty tomorrow to give Cruz the night off today because, he mashes lefties. So having him in there tomorrow will be nice. So I was glad they gave him the day off today. I was surprised they pinch hit for him today in the 9th. I would have rather just given him the whole day off. But no, I have no issue with it at all. And again, I think it's just taking the long picture view and not worrying about having too many guys sitting on one night. You know where you're going to get at the end, and you just got to be smart throughout the season. But just going back to Jeremy, I think he makes a good point about taking more pitches. I think that's a huge thing that you do miss with Josh Donaldson, is just a guy who's going to grind out counts, who's going to get pitch counts up, who's going to bat in the number 2 spot of the lineup and take pitches and work counts leading into Cruz and the middle part of the lineup. So you miss that a ton with Donaldson. It'll be interesting, and I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this too. If we start to see more shifting in where guys are hitting in the lineup just to try to spark something. You see it in, hockey sort of with shifting of lines and things like that. If you're having cold streaks with offense or things like that, I am curious if they try to hit, Polanco maybe in the number 1 spot, or once Arise comes back, start hitting him lead off more and move Kepler down into the lineup. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
Yeah, lineup construction is one of those things that is probably exaggerated in its importance to an extent, but I do think any kind of little shakeup can get things going, and different lineups, different looks for the pitchers. I guess I don't know. Jeremy, what do you think? Do you think that some more – I think they shook it up a little. I believe tonight was the first night that Sano's batted third, but maybe something a little more drastic do you think would be in store, Jeremy?
That's a good question. With Cruz getting the day off, it really, against a right-handed pitcher, looking at their short bench, it had to be Cruz or Buxton. And so getting Cruz a night off, keeping Buxton in the lineup, DHing Rosario. Now you'll see Rosario back in the outfield, Buxton tomorrow, Cruz at DH, and your infield can't really change. So I don't imagine that they'll shake the lineup up. Probably see Garver leading off, even though he hasn't hit well. Rocco's the type of guy that's gonna go with, show confidence in his players, and so getting that right-handed hitter to start the game would make the most sense. I don't know what else you do at this point. Adrianza's got to play. Gonzalez has to play. Now you have a bench of, what would it be, Cave, Avila, and who would be the third guy? I don't even know. And so what else are you going to do at this point with the short bench, with the lack of depth? You're not going to run another outfielder up. I think with Donaldson going on the IL, they'll activate Odorizzi. And so, yeah, you can rearrange deck chairs at any point. But Kepler's been good. Kepler's had good at bats. His average isn't great, but he's had good at bats. Rosario, for as frustrating as he's been forever, he's drawn some walks. So your bottom third is going to stay the same. Your middle third is hopefully the guys that can produce runs, and your top third is going to be those guys that traditionally get it done. So, I think you just go at it tomorrow, and it's the Royals, right? Let's not forget that they're gonna win tomorrow, and they're gonna win Sunday, and things are going to be fine. And even if they lose one of those two games, it's early. They've weathered some weird storms at this point already. But I think the way that this front office works is it's all big picture stuff. And Baldelli on the post game has zero concern. You can just tell he's not a guy that's going to worry too much. And I think that's exactly what this club needs. And that's why they work well. And that's why the showing up late and getting your work in and getting done early worked for them. The fan base is far more concerned after two losses than the guys in the clubhouse. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love Rocco's steady as she goes kind of attitude. I think not overreacting to things is a big reason why it doesn't snowball. I mean, how long did it take for them to lose 3 straight games last year? We'll see if they can avoid having it happen already this year. So let's rattle through some of these Q&A. Benja first says Coors Banquet is greater than Coors Lights. That seems a direct attack on our guy Jeremy here. Jeremy, let's quickly see if you have an opinion on that. Any opinion on the Coors Banquet?
If I've drank Coors Banquet, it's probably because Coors Light's been out at the bar. So I don't have an opinion, because at that point I'll drink anything.
Okay, sounds about right.
Coors Light's probably more inexpensive, so that fits better in my budget anyway.
Yeah. Well, a few less calories too, which is always, living that healthy life. Benja also asks the panel's thoughts on the extra inning rule. Keep it, dump it for next year. I did see that Derek Falvey, during the interview with the broadcast booth during the game, seemed to express intrigue, like maybe he doesn't hate it. I guess I don't really have an opinion, because I truly have not seen it. We haven't seen an extra inning Twins game yet. I don't know that I necessarily hate it. But I guess I'd have to see it happen a few times to see how much it annoys me. What do you guys think about the extra inning rule of having a runner start on second base in the 10th inning? We'll start with you, Matthew.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, just like you, haven't seen it yet, and interested to see how the Twins strategize with the runner on second rule. I just hate marathon games that go into the 15th, 16th inning. So anything that we can do to cut those out is a good thing. Like others have mentioned, I don't think it would be a bad idea to let them fight it out in the 10th and see if anyone breaks through with regular rules in the 10th, and then move to the runner on second. But we'll see how it goes, and we'll be interested to see if they stick with it into future seasons.
Yeah, I think having it kick in a regular 162 game season, having that rule kick in and after the 11th maybe would make a lot of sense. Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been in the minor leagues now, and it didn't really change anything for me following minor league baseball. It was actually nice, because when I was doing a lot of minor league reports, I would always pull nights with minor league extra inning games. It was super frustrating. And it's like, it's the 13th inning. It's a Tuesday night. It's 11 o'clock, and I'm still following this game. So when they added that and it sped games up, that was great. The fact that it's going to happen in major league games when single games have more importance, and a lot of these games are going to be at 7 innings, and this rule is going to kick in the 8th inning. That's weird to me. But the simple fact is it's happening to both teams. You know it coming in. It forces you to strategize in a way that's different than before. I think all of that's okay. You know, I'm not with the talk of banning shifts because it changed the way the game was played. Like, come on, if you can come up with a way to better your chances of winning, good for you. And so if you can be a team that can strategize a way to make this runner on second work to your advantage, good for you. Would I prefer to play a couple extra innings at the regular rules? Absolutely. But at the same time, I'm okay knowing that games should end a little bit earlier because I'm getting older and it's harder to stay up, you know?
Yeah, one thing that I don't get why games are still starting at 7:10 p.m. this year. I've always thought of that as kind of like a thing so people can get home and then get to the ballpark after work, but that's not a thing. So why not just like move it up an hour? But I don't know. I think that'd be nice in general if they moved to like at least 6:30 starts.
Right. And the Twins had a game last week. That wasn't a Pittsburgh game, was it? It was a Central game that started earlier. It was a national game, right?
Yeah, there was a random 6:00 game, in Central Time. So
that would be
nice to see more of that.
Yeah, one that's televised. It's like it makes sense if that's your prime time thing. Like let's just do it. And
I agree.
That's a really good question. Even if it was a half hour, I think that would be better. Like I let one of my kids stay up and watch the end of tonight's game. If it was once school starts, he ain't staying up till 10:00. And I think that's one thing that's made it harder. The baseball's going to lose fans for the simple fact that it's not as fan friendly as it used to be. I mean, that's a discussion for a different day, but that's certainly something that this year losing fans is a real thing. So if you start games earlier, I think you have more fans. You have more people watching. Not that there's not people watching, but little things like that could really help the future of the game. But like I said, that's for a different night, I think.
Yeah, that is a whole other can of worms. Mike Link asks, why isn't Blankenhorn on the bench? We talked about that a little earlier. I don't know that he would have really factored in too much if he had been here till now, but I think there's a good chance we'll see him join the team with Donaldson officially being placed on IL. He also asks, is Cave really contributing enough? Shouldn't they try something else with one of their prospects? That seems an odd question to me on a night where Jake Cave made a huge play in the outfield that could have potentially been a game-saving play. I think he's been pretty good with the bat. But it does, mentioning trying something with one of their prospects, I think broaches another question, which is interesting. As they try to get this offense going, and now as they're running a little short on some of their healthy players, do you guys think that there is any possibility of maybe trying to call up a Larnach or Kirilloff who are hanging out over in St. Paul? I guess it's really hard to say. If one of those guys was tearing it up in the minor leagues right now, it would be something we'd be talking about, I think, but there's just no visibility into that. So I don't know. Jeremy, do you think there's any chance of anything like that happening at this stage of the season?
The only thing that I could see happening is if the internal discussions are that Josh Donaldson is out and Sano's going to have to go back to third. Because in that scenario, Kirilloff could play first. In any other scenario, Sano is going to have to play first, and those guys are outfielders, right? And the outfield's fine, and Jake Cave is a perfect fourth outfielder. And if you can't get at bats for them, not that they're going to miss at bats, but they're going to take up a roster spot, which at this point, even with 28, they're precious. I did forget about Blankenhorn. He's the type of utility guy that makes a lot of sense. And if there would be another roster opening, if they had to IL a Rise, or if they want to send a pitcher down, I guess that makes sense. The other name that was brought up on the radio broadcast tonight was Astudillo, maybe playing third. But he is not on the 40-man because he was a COVID case, as far as I understand. So they would have to make a 40-man roster move, and they're going to have to make a 40-man roster move when Pineda's eligible too. So I think from a roster perspective, Blankenhorn would make the most sense, but they would have to make that spot with a pitcher, and I don't know what that move would be at this point because we do know that Odorizzi is going to take Donaldson's spot.
Yeah. Seth mentioned in the chat, wouldn't Odo take Donaldson's spot? I'm sure that probably will be the case initially, but I do assume they'll try to keep a balanced ratio of position players and pitchers, especially now with some of their hitters banged up. So we'll see what happens afterward. Matthew, what do you think? Do you see any possibility of a prospect coming up to join the fold here at this point in August?
Yeah, it's hard because you have no idea how guys are doing over at CHS. I'm sure they're running, simulated games and things like that over there, and the scouts and coaches there are watching and knowing how they're playing. But from the outset, we don't know. So to give any indication of who that would be is hard to do. I think Brent Rooker could be an interesting guy. It could be interesting to have a right-handed corner outfielder to bring up to throw in against left-handed pitchers. You have Rosario, you have Cave, you have Kepler. So having a right-handed guy could be interesting. And Rooker, I think, is ready and he has the bat. So I think he could be an interesting guy to have on your bench. And I do think there might be a reshuffling of the roster outlook. I don't know that we need as many bullpen arms as we have to have Thielbar, Poppin, and Alcala seems a little bit of an overkill on top of all the other bullpen guys that we have. But we'll see.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's going to be always a balance, even with the extended rosters in this kind of season, and with all the injuries. I mean, the Twins are not alone in being really banged up right now. So, as Seth mentioned, it's likely that Odorizzi will be taking Donaldson's spot. So let's talk a little bit about tomorrow's game. The Twins will be looking to bounce back on Saturday night. Jake Odorizzi will be making his season debut for the Twins. I'm guessing he will be on a fairly restricted pitch count for his first outing, which might explain why Rocco is kind of staying away from his top relievers. I think he wants to have them ready for tomorrow night in what might be another extended bullpen game. He'll be going up against Danny Duffy, who is perhaps Kansas City's best starter. So it's not a gimme by any means tomorrow. What are you guys looking for tomorrow as Odorizzi takes the mound for the first time? Matthew, let's start with you.
Well, it is a 6:00 game tomorrow, so Jeremy, you can be excited about that. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Duffy's a lefty, right? I believe.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so good, I think, to get a lefty, and I think it's going to be against a lefty that you're going to see this bullpen or this lineup really, blow up. So it'd be awesome if that came tomorrow. If you see breakouts from Garver and a fully, more of a breakout from Sano than we've seen some bits and pieces, but have him fully break out as well. I think tomorrow could be a good spot from that. Odorizzi, I think you're just looking for consistency. You want him to throw strikes. Would love if we could get 4 innings out of him, and then move to the bullpen. We have Trevor May, Tyler Duffy, Taylor Rogers, Sergio Romo. You have the whole gang ready to go tomorrow. So just get 4 solid innings of Odorizzi, and I think you can just move ahead with your bullpen, and I think they're in a pretty decent spot for tomorrow. Yeah,
a good opening matchup for Odorizzi, a pretty soft one. Jeremy, what are you thinking about Odorizzi's start tomorrow? Are you feeling confident? What are you going to be looking for?
Whenever pitchers come off the injured list, for me, it's always, are they, especially when they're going to make their first start, are they going to be overamped up? Like, is he going to just miss with high fastballs for the whole first inning? Is his velocity going to be where it should be? Those are the things that I look for. It seems like he's always a guy that ends up running his pitch counts up, and I don't think they have any intention of letting him throw more than 75 pitches. And if that can get him through 4 or 5, I think that's exactly what they're intending to see. When the Twins went to Poppin in the 9th tonight, that almost made me think that he was going to be he's the next guy out, that they're going to use that arm and Thielbar again after 3 innings just a couple days ago. Like the Twins, not so much Terry Ryan's regime, but the current regime has done that quite often where they will burn arms as much as they can and then ship them off. And so those two guys I think are very much, on the edge of being probably taxi squad because there's a spot. But you could get another arm up. There's still not a starter announced for Sunday, as far as I'm aware, even though that would be Barrios on normal rest. So there's a couple things that are certainly up in the air. And I think Odorizzi's, how he does tomorrow probably has a big impact on that next roster decision that's made.
Yeah, Seth, who's keeping an eye on the post-game presser, as he often does. Thank you very much, Seth. We really appreciate it. Says that Rocco would not announce the Sunday starter, said he will before tomorrow's game, which is kind of interesting because I got the impression before today's game that he was ready to announce it. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let's take a quick look here.
Is it weird to either of you guys that we're not watching dudes pitch on 4 days rest? That's not even Rios. You start Monday, you should start Sunday. That's not it's not even a consideration at this point. Guys are getting extra days.
Yeah, it's strange to me. It's strange that they're not.
And I'm not going to question Felby because he's obviously a much brighter mind than I am. But it's weird to me that what's been a normal thing is not even being considered as a normal thing anymore. If it's going to be Barrios, announce him, and you have your 5 starters, right? You don't even have to consider Thorpe in there. You have your 5 dudes, and you can roll, and that's not at all what we're doing. So that to me is weird. I'm not concerned about the pitching depth because there's plenty of it. It's a whole different concept for me to try to wrap my brain around.
Yeah, no, I agree. I assume it's just kind of related to the shortened schedule and seeing the amount of pitcher injuries and trying to take every possible precaution. Here is the bullpen usage spreadsheet updated through today. The Twins Daily game recaps always have these. They're always published immediately after the game. I recommend heading over to twinsdaily.com and checking these out. Fieres Rebello wrote ours tonight. And here's where things stand. So Thielbar, 13 pitches tonight. Whistler, 38, and Poppin 15. The Twins are in good shape going into tomorrow. May has not pitched for 3 days. Stashek has not pitched for 2 days. May, in fact, pitched through 5 pitches on Tuesday. Otherwise, he hasn't pitched since the last weekend. So I would think he'll be ready to possibly take a couple innings tomorrow. I don't know. Alcala, Rogers should be available. Duffy has a couple days rest. So the bullpen is very well rested going into tomorrow's game with Jake Odorizzi making his first start. And, of course, you will be able to catch the post-game show for that on Twins Daily, postgamepint.com. You can go there. You'll always be able to find a link to the following days or to that day's post-game show. And you can also find the previous game's show via YouTube embed, so you'll be able to rewatch tonight's show. I know a lot of people are watching this and wow, I wish I could just watch it again immediately. It's just so good. So any parting thoughts here before we sign off tonight, Jeremy, about the rest of the series or about what you saw tonight?
I'm just scrolling through Twitter, and it appears that Barrios is going to start Sunday.
Okay. All right. Sounds
Which
good.
I don't know why this had to be a secret. It just makes sense.
You scoop Seth. Matthew, any other thoughts from you? So we got Odorizzi and Barrios, 2 of our best starters going here these next 2 days.
No, the only other thing, I thought it was another impressive showing from the defense tonight, another good fielding game, which is something I've been monitoring very closely. Another couple good plays by Polanco at short. Obviously, Cave's play at left field, healthy Buxton in center. If we can have good fielding and the great pitching we've had, then we can be patient with the bats till they get going. And once they do, watch out.
Agreed. Polanco made a really nice play in the hole today, which was good to see. So, Okay, one last question before we sign off. Benja asks, I'd like to know the panelists' walk-up songs, and also said, someone please pick Nickel Nelly. So Benja is officially my favorite attendee for the night. Thank you very much. I would probably pick some Nickel Nelly. That's my favorite artist. But what about you, Jeremy? What's your walk-up song for this season if you're coming out?
So when I coach basketball, I always wanted the team to run out to All the Lights by Kanye. So that would be my walk-up song for sure.
I love it. That's a legendary song. I don't know if you've ever actually checked the credits of that song, but it's unbelievable how many artists lent some sort of background vocals to that track. It's ridiculous. Matthew, how about you? What's your walk-up track?
That's funny because initially Kanye came to mind for me as well. I was thinking of something a little more self-centered, like with Power or something like that. But yeah, I think that's what I'll go with.
Both going Kanye. All right. Yeah, you guys would get along with my wife. That's for sure. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for checking in. Make sure to check out postgamepint.com. You'll be able to catch tomorrow's. You'll be able to catch a replay of today's. And, of course, readtwinsdaily.com. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you to everyone who attended.
Peace.
All right.
Cheers.
Have a great weekend, everyone.